I'm going to share with you my schedule. Actually, I'm going to share our schedule we should be doing as a routine in wholesaling. Because so many people say, "Hey, Rick, what is your daily routine? What does it look like in wholesaling?" And I'm going to be honest, it's boring and it's by design. Boring makes a ton of money. See, exciting and running around with your head cut off and doing things that makes you feel busy is not going to work. Remember, busy means broke. Before I even get into this, I want you to understand there is no office needed. I'm here to tell you, you start a wholesaling, the last thing you need is an office. It's overhead. And a lot of you left your corporate job so you could like break your trains free. And the last thing, if you get an office, you have to report to it. You have to train your employees. You have to give lunch breaks. You have to do employee reviews. Now, listen, you're going to have to do a lot of this on your own anyways, but the reality is you don't need an office. I've had so many offices when I started out, like it was just a running joke. And offices, most people get an office at the beginning because once again, you're using your old lifestyle in your corporate world and you're like, I got to have an office. Nobody gives a crap about your office. The only person who cares about the office is you. It's your ego. You're feeding it. Whatever you spent towards that office, then spend it towards marketing. Now, somewhere down the line, when you've got a massive amount of deals pipeline, you got a portfolio of properties, by all means, knock yourself. An office would pay for itself. But in the beginning, it is a detriment to you. So if you're thinking about getting an office or you have an office, I'm telling you right now, if you haven't done at least a minimum of 100 deals, getting an office is going to detract from what you want to do in wholesaling. Here's what it's going to do. It's going to make you super busy. Busy means broke, and it's going to feed your ego. And you don't have the skill set. You don't know what you're doing. And you need to be homing in your most specialized training, which is going to be marketing for wholesaling. So an office, by the way, the only people who are ever going to show up to your office are your employees, and you're going to have to babysit them. In the beginning, most of the time you're doing 1099 employees, contract employees, because you can't afford to have a payroll at this point. Heck, you can't even afford to pay yourself at this point. So why are you even thinking about employees? So do me a favor. Just do not bring up the word office because it doesn't work until you have at least a minimum of 100 deals. But honestly, I would tell you have closer to 500 to even 1,000 deals before you consider it an office. Because remember, you're going to then have to have a payroll. You're going to have overhead with it. So between the payroll, the office, everything, you're looking at $150,000 to $250,000 minimum. And most of you aren't producing that per year. So why do people talk about offices? It's because it makes them feel busy, important. Nobody gives a crap. So I want you to understand that going that with the office. That's number one. So now that you know you get an office, like, okay, now I've got to figure out how does my day look like as a wholesaler? So I'm going to talk from the beginner level today just to simplify this because I have tried my schedule every which way. And I got to the point it got so complicated, I had to scratch it and start all over because I found myself doing busy work. And busy work means what? It means broke. And if you understand that, you know that. So rule number one, scheduling is a must. It's impossible to get anything done if you don't schedule it. If you don't schedule it, it's random and you can't plan for the day. So if you look at doctors, lawyers, everyone else, if they're good enough for schedules, so are we. So you're going to have to create a schedule. Full disclosure, I did a half-ass schedule for a very long time and it hurt my business. And looking back on it, it was just sometimes we're just scared to challenge ourselves. And if you know that going into it, you're going to have to push yourself in this department. So be honest with yourself right now. Do you actually schedule? Can you raise your hand and go, listen, I schedule my day? And if you don't, it's okay. Remember what I say. Once you identify the problem and recognize it, you can then attack it and fix it. So if you say, I schedule and you know you don't, then that means there's nothing in this video is going to help you out. So recognize who you are. Are you a scheduler or not? Put it in the comments. I would love to know because that helps out everybody. And once you know you are, I wasn't a scheduler when I started out because I didn't know what I was doing. I just thought entrepreneurs, like you get to do whatever you want in the day. It's actually the complete opposite. So, because here's the reality of it. Either you plan your day or others will dictate it for you. And I use the word dictate. I don't use it lightly because if you don't set your plan, you have to react to everybody the rest of the day. If you set your schedule and you plan it out, then people have to react to you. So choose which one you want to be. You want to be the hammer or the nail? I want to be the hammer. If you don't have a schedule, you're 100% the nail and you're going to be driven into the ground because people that want to get stuff done, they schedule it. There is no way around this. I've tried it without it. It doesn't work. Remember, if you are going to make your time important to you and you want to get something done on this planet Earth, if you don't schedule it, it's just going to randomly happen. Like, do you really think it's randomly going to happen? It's not. So unless you do a schedule and dictate it, you're going to get stuck. Some of you don't schedule very well, and then you spend all day reacting to people. And you ever feel like around late morning or lunchtime, like you're so far behind the 8 ball, you try to get back on track, but like you never do. So that's what happens if you halfway schedule or you don't schedule at all. You are just letting everything ebb and flow. And honestly, when you do that, when things are bad, you're going to get pushed to the side. When things are good, you're in the zone. And you can't operate like that, especially in wholesaling. So we have to be as productive as possible. Remember, we're only paid by our productivity. A lot of us came over from the corporate job, and let's face it, you worked an 8-10 hour day, whatever it was. The reality is you were productive about 2 hours, and the other 6 hours you were just entertaining yourself in the office. Water cooler talk, gossip, you name it. John did this, Sally did that. And I've been there, but it's completely different on this side of the equation on wholesaling, because you know that's just a huge waste of time and it's not going to make you any money. So sorry about that. So now that you know you have to plan your day, because if you don't plan it, you will react to people all day and nothing ever gets done. And I know you guys know people that do that. So you have to start planning your day before. Let me repeat. You can't just wake up in the morning and plan your day. All that's better than doing nothing. But here's how you start this out. Everyone's like, okay, how do I do it if I've never done it before? Just plan your day before. So we're in 2024. Tomorrow's a new day. After this video, or even during this video, I would sit down and figure out what you want to accomplish tomorrow, specifically in your wholesaling business. And you're going to have to take some personal matters and plan it out. See, because when you do that, you're not under duress, and then you can plan out how you believe your day should go, how you want it to go, what your true conscious choice is and what you want to do. And then it's much easier to plan the amount of time you're going to need, the amount of energy you're going to need, where you're going to need, and how much resources you need to do it. And if you start just doing this by the night before or the day before, things will get better, I promise. But a lot of you okay, it's 9 o'clock. Let me figure out what I'm doing today. Please don't do that. Show me by a show of hands or in the comments. Like when I was really young, I did everything by memory. I just memorized everything I needed to do. I thought I was like really cool doing that. And it's really immature to do things that way. I look back, I go, man, you got an amazing memory. Eventually you'll forget it. And honestly, when you get busy and you're running a robust wholesaling business, you do not want to rely on your memory. It will fail you. And when it fails you, it's going to cost you money. You're going to lose leads. You're going to lose prospects. You're going to lose contracts. You're going to screw up appointments. There's no way to memorize it if you're running a really robust wholesaling business. So start with the night before. Now, we have to build this muscle up because you guys aren't used to doing it. The next part you have to do after that is then you got to start planning your week before. Now, the cool thing about the week before, you're like, how the hell am I going to do that? Remember I talked about in the beginning of this video is your routine in wholesaling becomes very routine. It becomes very redundant, meaning just repeating over and over, and it's boring. That's how it works. Everybody thinks like, Rick, if I go and hang out with you in your office for the day, it'd be so exciting. Listen, my ego's not driven that way. All I care about is productivity. And I'm not interested in getting you excited because I don't have a product to sell you. And for that reason, I don't do it because it's boring. It's so boring. It's the exact same thing for the most part, 5-6 days a week. And you need to get into that exact same rhythm. So what you do is when you start, you get at least a week or 2 weeks on planning your day before. Then you can start backing up and look at it like you're going in a hot air balloon and you're looking higher and higher. And you're looking at the calendar. Okay, I know on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I have to do this for marketing. I know on Tuesday, Thursdays, I'm going to do driving for dollars. And then you can start breaking down the 3 different aspects of your business. And everybody knows wholesaling has 3 parts to it. Number 1, marketing. Hands down the most important piece of the puzzle. We're going to break that down for you. Number 2, basically acquisitions. That's the process of going on appointments, negotiating and writing contracts. And number 3, dispositions. Basically when you're selling your contracts to your cash buyers. And you can't have one without the other, but I promise you marketing is by far the most important, hands down. And that's where most of you are beginning. So I'm going to break down the schedule and show you how to handle that the best way for you to do it. So we're still talking about planning our schedule. So you guys are in a great part of the world in time, because when I started out doing this, everything was handwritten. Yes, you had to buy, I forget the name of the company. You had to write it all down, and you had to buy these very expensive day planners. But I did like it because you could open it up, you could write it down, but it wasn't very fluent when you had to make changes. So today, simple Google Calendar or like an Outlook calendar is the best way to do it. And the beauty of it is you can put it on your mobile app phone, and it will sync with your desktop. So when you're out, you're making changes. It's really simple. And you can intertwine some of your personal stuff like doctor's appointments, or you're taking the kids somewhere, and intertwine it within your wholesaling business. And I'm going to show you easily how to do that today. It's really not that hard. I promise you, it's not that bad. Now, I want you to understand this before you go any further on the planning part on your schedule is you have to know your parameters. And when I said your is the key word here, because the reality is we're all starting from different spots. Some of you are young and you're on your own, which is great because you're in 100% control of your time. Some of you are living with your parents and they have expectations. Some of you are in college and doing this, and you have exams and you got classes. And some of you have other obligations. You have significant others. You have children. You have elderly parents you're taking care of. This is the beauty of wholesaling. But what I want you to understand is you got to know your parameters. I can't tell you what your parameters. And if you're taking care of young children and you know how rambunctious they're in the morning and you got to get them out the door and you got to get them fed and bathed, like know the hours that you just can't negotiate with your family, and be honest with yourself and put it out there up front. And that's how you start the schedule, the stuff that's non-negotiable. If you're taking care of elderly parents and you got to take them to the doctor every Thursday at 2 o'clock, then you need to set that, whatever amount of time it is, a couple hours, and take care of that. Remember, you have 24 hours in a day. You are not limited by an 8-hour work week. That's what fools go to work for. And I'm not making fun of people go to work. It's just 8 hours and you only have 2 hours of productivity. The reality is you have a ton of time during the day, 24. Everyone thinks, oh my God, the day's so short. It's not, it's 24 hours. And the reality is you're sleeping between 6 and 8 on normal. If you're sleeping 10 or 12, you need to change it. Unless you have a medical condition, you need to get up and go to work. You need to work your wholesaling business. So there's no way around it. So once you know your parameters, you build them in there. And here's a really cool thing is your parameters will change as life changes. But we're talking about people getting started out in wholesaling. So once you define your parameters, then you build your schedule and go from there. Because remember what I said here, you are paid by your productivity, not by your time. Repeat that. You are paid based on your productivity, not the amount of time you spend at work. So I don't care how many hours you work. I don't care how many days you sit at a desk. I don't care how many hours you did driving for dollars. It doesn't matter. The only thing I look at is, are you getting tons of leads and are you taking an incredible amount of action on them? And if you're doing those two things, great things are going to happen to you. Remember, this is the journey of wholesaling. It doesn't matter if you come in and you paid somebody 100 grand. And believe me, I've known people who paid 100 grand just for wholesaling. It just blows me away because you can't substitute hard work. You still have to do the work. Honestly, if you say, Rick, I want to pay you 100 grand, but you're going to make all the phone calls, you got to do all the appointments, everything, it wouldn't be worth my time. So understanding it doesn't matter how much money when you come into wholesaling, you have to go through the journey. It doesn't, I've never seen someone go through for free. And if they did it, it means they never did anything and somebody else did the work for them and you basically paid them to do it. So what's the point? So if we know we're paid by productivity and time, we've got to keep that and we have to understand that. So here's another one. It's going to be a little controversial. It's going to hit you in the mouth, but I'm just going to go ahead and give it to you. Ready? Remove your feelings from your schedule. I said it because most of your schedule is you're reacting with your emotions and feelings that somebody said something or this deal fell apart or you got upset about that. And because I'm upset, I don't want to do this. Well, when you do your schedule, you got to do it minimum the night before, ideally the week and even the month before, because your feelings aren't involved. If you're doing it in the day, go, oh, my mom's all over my back. I got to get this done or she's going to kill me. That's planning your schedule with your feelings and it will get you absolutely nowhere. So remember, you're running a business. It doesn't mean you don't care for people, but it means if you want to get somewhere, I'm going to have to take my feelings, compartmentalize them and set them on the side here so I can get the task done. And when you're done with it, then if you want to go back to your feelings, but 9 times out of 10, when you set those feelings on the side, they're usually gone by the time you go back to them anyways. and you avoid saying stupid things. You don't react. You don't make terrible phone calls, stuff like that. And I want you to understand that it helps a lot. So remember, remove your feelings from your schedule. Now, here's my other rule. We talked about family early. Let your family know your schedule. So you can't ask your family, the people you live with, to respect you if they don't know your schedule at all. So you have to understand that going into. But so many of you people, like, you think they got ESP. Let your family know your schedule, and you'll get a lot more respect with it. If they don't know your schedule, like, I didn't know you. I didn't know you were talking. I didn't know you were cold calling from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. But once they know it, then they'll respect you, and then they know, okay, when dad's done, or when my husband's done, or my wife's done, then I get them back at this time, and that's fine. Remember, you're making a sacrifice to make things better for your family. So you have to communicate to them. So the old days is you went off to work, you left at 7:30, you came back at 5:30. Those days, and they knew your schedule and they didn't really bother you unless it was an emergency. So when you work at home in your home office, which you should be doing, you should not have an office, then we got to have some rules, and so you can be productivity, because you can't have people interrupting you like every other minute. And I've had these challenges before, and once I announced my schedule, everybody knew it. I even put it on the outside of my office door, and everyone knew when daddy was working, like, you just left me alone. And sometimes you hear some loud things going on in the office. That's just how it works. So if they don't know, they can't respect it. So start out by just letting them know, hey, I'm going to be working this time. We got to either do it before or after. So let's get into the schedule, and let's just make this is super simple. It's not complicated at all. And you guys have probably seen countless videos. I've talked about this all the time. I've tried scheduling every which way. Now, keep in mind, I'm a guy with ADHD, meaning when I do something and I'm laser focused, very few people can do what I do. Like, meaning I'm all in. I go deep into it. I'm hyper focused. The problem is if I try to do 10 things at once, it's not good. I get frustrated, I get exhausted, and I kind of get bored with it. And I go, well, I like to deal with kind of one thing at a time. It doesn't mean I'm not bouncing a million balls around, but I have to focus on one thing. I have to get it done, and I have to move it off my list, and I have to take on the next project. And that can be overwhelming with someone like me with ADHD. So I came with the best solution for it. I've taught my son this. I've taught thousands of people this, and it seems to be the best compromise and works the best. And we basically call it time blocking. Now, the amount of time you can do it, you can be flexible with it. You need a minimum of 2 hours. So I say time blocking. Perfect example. If I'm going to be doing cold calling, I'm going to dedicate 2 hours. And what I'm going to do in that 2 hours, I'm going to take this thing, which, by the way, these things are killing you in your wholesaling business. I know they think you're helping you, but you guys are making way too many phone calls, way too many texts. If it's not business related, you should not be sitting there calling people all day. You wouldn't do it at your office. If you were working for a corporate, I don't know why you would cheat on yourself and do it. So number one, you've got to understand that do time blocking. So if you're going to commit and do 2 hours of cold calling, 3 hours, some 4 and 5, figure out what your attention span is. Mine, 2 hours, I'm all over the board. Stuff starts coming out of my mouth I don't even understand, but I admit it. So I know what my problem is, but my 2 hours is going to be like 10 hours of anybody else. And so when I do it, I'm going to shut my phone down. I'm going to turn it off, and I'm going, like, I'm not opening up a window. I'm not watching a YouTube video. That's all I do. And I deep dive it, and it feels really good. I hate starting it, but once I get into it, it feels the best. I find that time blocking is the best. Now, remember, let's say from sun up, sundown, that is, prime time for wholesaling, because that's when people are moving around. How many time blocks can you really squeeze in? So we're going to talk in the next section here on how to allocate your time block. But like, listen, if you had 4 2-hour time blocks, you think, well, Rick, that's only 8 hours. I go, remember, 8 hours with me is a lot more than you're ever going to get with like anyone else. So remember, we're paid based on productivity. We're not paid on the amount of time we work. So here's the key with time block. I space them. So if like 10 to 12, I just did cold calls, from like 12 to 12:45, I leave it open. Why? I can grab a bite to eat. I like to squeeze workouts in the middle of my day. Why? Because nobody's at the gym. I don't do the 5-hour PM gym crunch, and I don't do it first thing in the morning, because that's when everybody goes. That's when all the employees go. So I try to find congruencies and opposite schedules that makes me more efficient. And you'll find things that work really well in your schedule. Like, I fast during the day, so I don't eat lunch. So I take my lunch hour, the hour I would take for lunch, and I just go work out at a gym I can walk to from my office. Like, So you'll find those in there, but I do 2-hour time blocks. So it's 10 to 12, and then I'll do like 1 to 3, and then maybe I'll do like 4 to 6 or 4 to 7. So I leave little spaces where I can return calls, do some things, and I don't feel like I'm crunched. If you try to do time blocks, 2 hours, 2 hours, 2 hours, 2 hours, you're going to be like in a doctor's office. You're going to be backed up till midnight every night because crap comes up and you got to deal with it, especially in wholesaling. Contracts fall apart, new leads come in, priorities change, and you got to be a little bit flexible on how you do that. So I like time blocking. Some people do 2 hours. I've seen it as high as 4. 2 to 3 hours is the typical spot. And we need to figure out how we're going to break that down. Now, I said earlier on this, your time block cannot be broken. This is the key to it. So if you set 3 hours for cold calling or 2 hours, and then your friend calls you and you pick up the phone, that's not time blocking. And you have to stop doing it. You have to stop taking your friends' phone calls. I don't take them. Let it go to voicemail. You'll live. Don't read the voicemail, period. So you can set your phone on do not disturb, which is what I really advise there. And if it's really important, they'll figure out how to get a hold of you. But listen, if your business is really important to change your family's future and your freedom, you can't sit there and keep answering the phone. Guys, honestly, the most powerful people in the world don't even have cell phones. How is that? I know they got lots of assistants and stuff, but the reality is you could live without your cell phone. I know you guys are like, it's like you have to have it, but it's killing your wholesaling business. There's nothing worse when I'm working with somebody and they constantly keep looking at their phone. You know why? Because they're not present. It means they're not focused and they can't make a decision. They can't learn. And they're a dopamine like addict. And those people I have a tough time ever working with. So if you're always trying to figure out what's going to happen in the future, that means you can't be in the present and I cannot work with you. So here's a simple rule we do. You ready? And I've shared this so many times before. It's the 3-1-1 rule. Don't overthink it. I'm going to break it down. If you had 5 hours in a day, you'd spend 3 hours doing one thing, 1 hour doing another thing, 1 hour doing this last thing. So if we know wholesaling is broken down in 3 basic categories to function, you guys know where I'm going with this. Because if you know marketing is the lifeline, the blood for your wholesaling business, you know that's the most important one. So the 3 is going to represent your representation in marketing, because marketing is everything in wholesaling. If you don't get marketing down, you don't have to worry about acquisitions. You definitely don't have to worry about dispositions, because there's no leads coming in. With no leads, you can't write contracts. And if you can't write contracts, you can't sell your contracts to cash buyers through disposition. So we always at freewholesaling.com, we focus on marketing first. Marketing is everything. And it's not just regular marketing. I'm not just looking for people with houses for sales. We're looking for motivated sellers. And if I have a motivated seller, it means I have a great chance of getting a great wholesale deal. Without a motivated seller, odds get very, very slim right off the bat. So here's what I do. The 3-1-1 rule basically means if you had 5 hours in a day, that's how you do it. So 3 out of 5 comes to about 60%. So 60% of your effort, your scheduling, your routines should be geared around marketing. And if they're not, you need to take a deep dive look into your wholesaling business, because that's what it's going to take to get there. In fact, some of you guys are like 80, 90%. Why? Because until you get the engine of marketing turning on and you get people calling you, none of the other stuff's going to work. You could say, Rick, you got to put 100% in it. You can't put 100% in the marketing, because you're going to need some other things to get your wholesaling business up and running. But I'm here to tell you, it is a bare minimum of 60% to be effective in wholesaling in your marketing effort. And I want you to understand that. Without this piece, so many people try to skip the marketing and they just want to reach out to everybody who has a house for sale. That's not marketing. That's called being a realtor. Now, the other part would be 20% acquisitions and 20% dispositions. But I'm here to tell you, let's give like the real facts. You ready? For newbies, I would say 80% of your effort is going to go towards marketing activities. So when you're writing your schedule, you have to understand that if 60% is the norm and I've yet to write a contract and I haven't done dispositions, I would take 60 plus 20 and make it 80%. Why? Because without this, nothing else is going to work. So many of you guys try to spend so much time on dispositions and you try to figure out how to write the perfect contract. And then you try to find all these creative ways not to do wholesaling. If you just do the work put in front of you, you'll do just fine. But I've yet to find anybody that can break this code in the long term and do it this way. You have to do it. You have to do it. Marketing. If I cannot drive this point enough across to you right now, you've got to figure out marketing and wholesaling. Without it, it is an instant death in wholesaling. If you do a little bit of it, it's just a really slow death. It means you never really stepped up to the plate and did it. Because a lot of you are scared to do it because you believe it's risky. Well, guess what? Life's risky. You know what the end outcome is, so you might as well go all in. I don't know what you're waiting for. A lot of people, they go, "Oh, Rick, you had it so much easier back in 2003." No, I didn't. Like, there was no good education out there. You had to figure stuff out on your own. Was there more deals? Yes, but you didn't know how to do it. Title companies didn't even understand what I was doing when I was doing this. You think it's any different today? It's the same thing. Like, and the people 30, 40 years before me, they're like, "Oh my God, like it was so hard when they started." I was told the business was going to be outlawed and be illegal over 21 years ago. Thank God I didn't go with the hearsay. I went and looked up the facts. And to this date, it's still not even slightly illegal. There is basically one or two states where you have to focus on it. But for the most part, 95%, 97% of America, you can wholesale. And the fact is, there's some great, great legal arguments coming out in the Supreme Court right now, basically letting states know, and we'll find out, that they can't supersede what is already written into the Constitution. And I'm so proud to see finally that people are standing up and not letting states bully and run over federal law. States are not supposed to interfere with your right to enter into a contract. And the last 5 years, you've seen states trying to manipulate it and do all of it. Just because they write a stupid statute doesn't mean it's going to hold up in the court of law. Now, I don't want you to be the one to test it out. I definitely don't want to test it out, but like, somebody needs to start taking these people on. So I have some ideas for that down the road. We'll talk about it later. But guys, I want you to understand is you've got the marketing piece is so important. And please go, "Oh my God, I heard so and so in this state they wrote a bill." Do you know there's thousands, if not hundreds, if not thousands of bills out there that write like like wholesaling laws all the time? But thank God we have a political system where there's representatives for the state, and depending on the type of state you live in, will dictate if they try to pass it. And by the way, even when they pass some of these crazy laws in like Illinois, it doesn't mean it's legal. I get it. I don't want to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars testing it out either. And I know you don't, but I'm just telling you, the United States Constitution is very clearly written. In fact, I would love for any one of you on here to go ahead and read the dang thing, because most people don't. See, people will spend all day reading excerpts from the Bible, reading this and that, when the United States Constitution will give you clarity in how the laws in the United States work. And if you don't understand them and you hear hearsay from politicians, that's when you get really stuck. So 80% marketing. Using the block rule, you don't have to overcomplicate this. Remember, you got 7 days a week. You decide which days you want to work. You're going to have to put in at 6 out of the 7, I promise you. I did 7 out of the 7. Why? Because I didn't have a choice. I was broke. I was weighing it over my head and I had to dig out a hole. So if you resonate with me, you're just going to have to work harder. Just suppose that even if you're young and you're getting started, you're just going to have to get through that learning curve. So remember, on marketing, the one thing you have to understand is you have to pull the most motivated seller list that you can find. And if you want to learn more on how to do that, go over to freewholesaling.com. We teach you how to pull all the government lists. There's too many for me to go on here. And this is why we created freewholesaling.com. So I could go over a variety of topics for you. So I didn't have to repeat myself every time. Go over there and they'll show you how to do it. Now, when you're prospecting and engaging, when you have a list, so maybe you got a list of thousands of people and you go, "Okay, Rick, when do I attack this list?" So now you just got to break down your marketing. At this point, you've picked your market, you've pulled your list, and now you've decided which marketing meeting you're going to attack with. Most of you on here are going to wind up doing cold call, maybe some texting and reverse driving for dollars. Whatever strategy you want to apply, I would use them all, but it's up to you to do it. Basically, when you're prospecting, you basically have, in my opinion, depending on where you are in the United States, from 9:30 in the morning to 7:30 p.m. at night. That's when most are the acceptable hours. That gives you 10 hours to engage prospects. So if you're looking at 2 and 3 hour windows, figure this out. Now, in the beginning, I would load the morning 10 to 12, and I would load the evening from like 5 to 7. Why? Because I love the evening because I just got better response rates. Remember, I didn't do cold calling. I did different other types of marketing. But if I'm a cold caller, I'm going to increase my odds by like doing it in the evening. We are not 9 to 5ers here. Just because I say at 9:30 doesn't mean your day starts at 9:30. And if you're like me, man, I need some peace and quiet when I get my day started. I get up early. I always get up, I make a point of getting up when the sun comes up. That's when your body should naturally wake up. And that's when I don't work out first thing in the morning because I'm just not in peak state and I just don't like it. So and nobody says yet. I love people who go, got to get up at 4 or 5 a.m. to work out. Who gives a crap? Listen, you got to work around these hours. Sun up to sundown should be your peak time to be reaching out to sellers. How you want to chop it up, completely up to you. Part of that is your existing parameters that you have within your family and your own dynamics. Some of you have open restrictions. Maybe if you're young, you wake up at 10 and you get going. But if you wake up at 10, you're going to have to push through the 8 or 9 at night. It's fine. Listen, wholesaling doesn't care when you wake up. I don't, everyone says early bird gets the worm. I'm a big fisherman. That part's true. But when it comes to wholesaling, whoever puts in the most productive hours are the ones who make the most money, who have the most success in it. It's not the person who wakes up the earliest. I promise you. Zach's not an early bird. I am. We're just different. Takes after his mother. What can I tell you? So if you know that you're prospecting, you just build around it. Now, what you want to do after that, when you do your schedule, you've got to figure out, is your schedule working? How do I know if my schedule is working? It's simple, just like this. You track your days and weeks productivity. Eventually, you'll turn it into your month. And how do I do that? Is simple KPIs. How many contacts did I make? And contacts is somebody I've talked to. Are you interested in selling your house? And they give me some sort of positive response based on my MCTP script. If you want to learn more about that script, go over to freewholesaling.com. You get it? So if I'm going to make 100 contacts in a week, I know I'm going to have to reach out to at least probably 1,000 people. How am I going to reach 1,000 people? I'm going to have to schedule this out. I'm going to have time blocks. After that, it's just a math problem. I can't tell you how to do your day on a math problem. And if I did, you probably wouldn't do it anyways. You can't have too many leads. I promise you that. You cannot have too many leads. It's impossible not to have enough leads. So once I do that, I'm going to look at the amount of contacts I have. I'm going to look at the amount of appointments I've set. I'm going to look at the number of contracts I wrote, and then I'm going to look at the amount of contracts that were accepted. And eventually, in the beginning, those numbers are going to be light because it's on design. The way you bump those numbers up and really get productivity is you get in a routine. And once you schedule a routine, things start to happen. Why? Because you're making it happen. So many of you are sitting back and letting people drive your life, every moment of it. And listen, once you get out from under your parents, once you get out from like a set schedule, and once you get out from your boss's work, it's up to you to drive your day. And you should have the highest expectations for yourself, much higher than anyone else would ever for you, because the only person you can disappoint in your life is you. So if you understand going into that, it's real easy and you need to track it. So guys, this is about everything on scheduling, because like people are like, okay, well, Rick, can you show me the schedule? Show me your parameters, show me the hours you got a day. Just use the 3-1-1 rule. And remember, a minimum 60% of your time should be put on marketing. The reality is most people start out 60, 70% on marketing, and then they dwindle down and they let that number get so small that they stop getting leads, they stop writing contracts, and then they run out of money and they freak out. And then they run back over to the marketing and they put 100% in marketing, and then they're trying to do this and they're trying to juggle balls. I'm telling you, that marketing ball is the most important one. And if you skip it, neglect it, and you don't keep it up in the air, you're going to be on the biggest roller coaster ride of your life. How do I know that? Because I did it myself. And I want you to understand that. So that is it on the schedule, and it works, guys. I love my schedule the way I do it. Some days I'm not crazy about my schedule because actually I have somebody who helps me do it all. But I really struggled when I first did my schedule, especially in the first 3 years. And if you can just learn something from this and understand how we can get that done so you don't have those problems, it's going to help you out a ton.